Pharmaceutical Processing, in conjunction with Interfex 2017, presents Interfex Live.
We're going to be talking about challenges and opportunities in developing a new plastic film for bioprocess activities. So my first question is, does this all stem from the single use? And what's driving the plastic film in this case?
So there are a number of things for driving this. The first, really from a GE perspective, is we've built a lot of our size and scale in our single-use portfolio today through acquisition. With those acquisitions came a lot of good products in existing films, some of those which were tailored to work in a particular unit operation, but not necessarily across the whole portfolio of unit ops. So with our endeavor to enable outcomes on end-to-end processing, this helps bring a logical contact material that can work in the full process and lower the validation hurdle for our customers. So for the customer input, we've been able to take that active management of the supply chain, have a more strategic relationship with our supply chain partners, and build in some of the transparency and step up in characterization that they've been looking for. So we view this as a life cycle management product for our single-use business.
I've mistakenly forgot the intro. Parrish, CTO at GE Healthcare. We've done this a few times. Susan Burke, Russ, and Nicholas, all from GE Healthcare. We're going to be talking about that. So this is, let me ask the question to the group. So this is not the only film that you guys obviously have utilized in your single use. So what's so different about it? And why did you go down this road?
Sure. So in this case, we took the feedback from our customers to really take the opportunity to work with our film manufacturing partner, Sealed Air, in order to build this film from the ground up, specifically for bioprocess applications. Even down to the raw material selections, the resins, the additives were selected specifically for the applications in the bioprocess space. The structure of the film built upon the needs based upon the specific applications and all the requirements across the board when we look at our product lines that go across upstream to downstream applications.
So if I've been using your products before, so do I not use them now? What's going to happen going down the road here? These becoming the legacy? This is the follow-up?
No, we will continue to offer all of our existing products in the films that they are in right now, because they work fantastically in the applications that they're used in. In this case, we don't have in our portfolio a film that can go all the way across the board in all of the applications, and this allows us to expand our capabilities to offer that.
Can you give us a sense of what capabilities we're talking about, comparison-wise? Is that a good question? You guys tell me.
No, so okay. It's a good question, and some aspects of the control are within the supply chain, monitoring additives at the raw material level, at the film level, and ensuring that at the GE product level that there's no breach of our supply chain and any contaminant that could be in somebody's extruder for some resin from the last product they ran getting in there, right? So this higher level of assurance, it takes effort to manage this on 7 films that we have now working through our portfolio is not sustainable. So to be able to step up the service level, the security of the supply chain, and the active management of that supply chain, that was one of the other benefits for us, besides some of the physical benefits of really overcoming some of the challenges of film properties. And I'd say the biggest there that we had to deal with was the competing nature of film that's flexible to be able to handle a lot of flexural stress in applications, but also maintain good barrier properties to not shift pHs, osmolalities for bulk drug substances, and to not evaporate or concentrate products that could have very long time shelf lives.
Along those lines then, so what do you tell your customers about cell compatibility and suitability? Anybody want to take a run at that one?
Yeah, sure. With the development and working with Sealed Air, who has strong business in healthcare is already supplying films in the pharmaceutical industry, working with a partner who has that knowledge to begin with, really incorporating the needs of bioprocess. And as we were working through the development, and we screened 22 different film prototypes and heavy emphasis on cell culture compatibility with sensitive cell lines, all of the biocompatibility standard requirements that our customers are looking for, and really putting the rigor into ensuring that we had a film candidate that will be suitable for all sensitive cell lines.
Yeah, Susan makes a good point, because I think, as she said, we supplied 22 variants to GE, but in reality, we had done a lot of work ahead of that, including some cell testing ourselves at the laboratory in Italy. So I think we produced something like 50 pilot line structures before we got down to the 22, which then went on to GE for further testing.
I just wanted to add that on the customer side, we're responding. GE is responding to customers across the industry about more transparency about the supply chains, more intricate testing of the quality of the film, the biocompatibility of the films with cell lines that are sensitive, as Susan recommended or mentioned, and then as Ross said, a film that's better suited potentially for more stressful processes. As cell processing and bioprocessing advances in applications, we need to look forward towards a film and a structure that would have robustness, improved robustness as we see bioprocessing advance.
What's your definition of a more robust process or a more aggressive process?
Yeah, so one of the earlier questions you had asked, about what was different than taking on some of the earlier films is, we've had the benefit of seeing where they've encountered challenges. And some of those challenges are coming from process intensification. When you want to get more productivity out of a bioreactor and pump up the volume, so to speak, you're running higher sparge rates, higher KLAs, you need more oxygenation. Over time, then the filters can sometimes become occluded with either foam, some level of moisture, vapor, and then you start to see some pressure build up in bags. And this is a real challenge when you get into these highly intense processes. So we're seeing the tip of the iceberg there, but we can now respond to it with a material that we feel pretty confident is going to get our customers to where they want to go, based on where we've already seen challenges occur.
And for the microbial processes, as you know, GE has launched a 500-liter scale single-use microbial fermenter, where the stresses are really elevated on mass transfer and mixing rates. So we needed a film that would be suitable for that application as well.
Which, the reason, thanks, Parrish and Russ, the process intensification, I think we talked about at least 3 times last year. It was a hot topic. So is that what brings people to ask you about sealed film, or what prompts them to come and talk to you about this? I'm leading up to when do I find out about this? You know what I mean? So what would make me want to call you? Am I making sense?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. So I think the first subset of customers who would be interested in this are those who've spent the last several years at conferences saying that we don't have enough security in the supply chains underneath them, and that if single use is going to grow up to deliver commercial drugs on a very large scale to patients, that we've got to shore a lot of that stuff up, right? And I think Nicholas can talk a little bit about what we've done here, not stopping at the GE N-1 part of the supply chain, but moving into the resin suppliers and their suppliers as well.
So is there help me out, there's a differentiation between an intense process and process security? So what are we talking about?
Yeah, so that was the first set. I mean, that's broadly the foundation that the materials sit on. And then I think if you're an existing user of GE films, it can make life simpler. If we take our products that work today very well in the upstream space and talk about media prep in a Acceler-X mixer, a seed train in a wave rocking bioreactor, and a stirred tank production reactor, and being fed by some feeds from our high clone organization, that could come in 3 films. If a customer has not yet validated that process, or a drug manufacturer has not yet validated that process, that's a lot of work to do. It puts a lot on their to-do list. To be able to do that in one film that works across those applications and be able to qualify for the worst case scenarios within each of those applications, and some of those being common, it's a much more efficient and I would say a better approach to managing their major contact surface of their plant as we transition to what used to be, stainless steel to now plastic films.
Nicholas, I cut you off there.
No, that's fine. I think the point that Ross was making was more about the question of continuity of supply and consistency in the film itself. So Sealed Air is one of the biggest purchasers of resins for flexible packaging applications. And that means that we have very close relationships with the resin suppliers. If you look at the market for resins for medical packaging or medical products in general, that equates for less than 0.5% of all resin manufactured globally. So even if you're buying a material which has a resin which is a high volume resin, you're still a very, very small fish in the pond. And therefore you're really always going to be susceptible to risk of change. And change is the worst thing because you end up with revalidations and all of the, all the work involved. So we've been able to work with our suppliers, given our volume, given our mass, our critical mass, to actually get extended change notification, right to buy facilities, and that will give us a much greater safety net, if you will, in terms of any risk of change over time. And that's the critical piece there in terms of continuity and consistency of the product, so there are no surprises for the users going forwards.
I think so. I got it. I mean, one of the biggest problems we have in our end of the industry is variation in suppliers, and it's ironic that you would say it's about how much you buy, because it's surprising. It turns out that we think we're a big supplier and we buy 0.1%. So we're subject to somebody else's requirements, our requirements. So we just have to lot select. That's not the situation I get in this thing. So in your particular case, you assure that simply based on the critical mass that you're at, right?
Yeah, so given the volume that we have across the whole of the Sealed Air organization, we have those relationships in place with the resin suppliers, and so we've worked with them from the outset, having identified the resins that work well for things like cell cultures, the yield for the cells, for the rigidity of the film, the flexibility of the film that's required. We've then worked with the suppliers to develop the resins, in some cases, which meet the requirements. So things like the antioxidant, the Ergophos 168, which has been identified as having, byproducts which are negative for culture growth. We've been able to pretty much eliminate them from the film because we have the relationships with the suppliers.
So Parrish, this is exclusive for this is an exclusive GE product, then? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure I got that straight. So Susan, what samples, prototypes, product literature? When does this stuff come up available?
Yeah, so on our GE Life Sciences website, right at the beginning of it, you'll see the Fortem film, and there's a button to click, and we have evaluation kits available right now that include sample bags with 3 different lots that are our qualification lots of the film. So customers can order them, do some qualification work, try the film for their applications, and we'll certainly be rolling out more information throughout this year and working on the launches.
It's really launches occurring in kind of an iterative way. The next piece will be a full dossier, kind of a regulatory support guide for the film. It should be available by end of May. That'll include the E&L analysis for the BPOG protocol and all that good stuff. And then from there, we'll develop product from this film in an iterative way. And a complementary investment has been made there in supply chain as well to build up some capacity to manufacture product from the film.
I think maybe one of the things that because it's either maybe the way I ask questions or the way I listen. But I wanted to back up, just the strategy of what got you to Fortem then. All right, why don't we go back and say, what was the development strategy? I know you touched on it, let me just make sure we're clear on that. What's the strategy here? Was to replace everything, or?
Yeah, so the strategy was, again, at the beginning, a platform film. So we started off by looking at those unit operations and basically saying, where have we had challenges with our existing products? Where have we seen the signs of stress? What are the hot points? We knew the intensified bioreactor was one. We know the rocking bioreactor with wave and the flex fatigue that creates is another. We know having our high clone business and having shelf lives on processed fluids for up to 2 years, that pH and things like OTR, oxygen transmission, moisture transmission are important. So what we tried to do was kind of shortlist the film decathlon, taking the 10 challenging things. We know dropping a 20-liter bag from a height of 5 feet and making sure it doesn't break is a challenging test, right? So with that sort of what we call fail fast, fail early approach, we then went through a down selection approach where we would take prototypes which came in series from sealed air, and then we would run them through that gauntlet. Usually starting with the flex fatigue, because that was one of the most difficult things to balance with the other properties of film. When you get into films, they're multi-layer for a reason, because each material has trade-off properties and competes with another. If you want to make some layer thicker, you might need to give in another layer of the film. So a down selection seemed like the way to get there. And to be honest with you, we were banging our heads in the wall a little bit with some of the flex fatigue challenges, and some help from the GE Research Center, the old plastics brain trust there, developing some novel methods to measure flex fatigue, brought us from taking prototypes and determining how they fail in that mode of operation from about 30 days to about 1 day. And things really started to accelerate from there. Along those 7 prototypes, things like post-gamma, compatibility, cell culture, application testing. We've done over 200 observations through that process to arrive at what we thought was the final structure and put the stake in the ground on it and sitting on qualification lot material now.
As a potential user, then, I guess the first question is going to be, what's the contact film? You want to address that a little bit? We talked it briefly before we started. The contact.
The fluid contact surface of that film is a specifically selected blend of polyethylene and cyclic olefin copolymer. And the cyclic olefin copolymer is not currently used today in the bioprocess space, but it's certainly not new to the pharmaceutical industry. It's used in vial as well as syringe applications. And the application now in bioprocess allows us to offer a contact surface that has excellent moisture barrier properties, in addition to a low extraction profile. This cyclic olefin copolymer acts as a slip agent or anti-block agent, which allows us then to not have to introduce small molecule additives that are notorious as extractable compounds, and the potential to interact with the cell culture. So by eliminating that and providing this alternative, we are able to provide a cleaner surface to our customers.
This is something that's you source as well.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we use that material for some other applications, so we work with the vendor to create this grade for this film.
So we talked about high clone. You wanted, what the high clone product going to be offered in this film? Did I hear that one right? Make
That's
sure
correct.
I got that.
Yeah, some of that stability work is already underway. For those products, we do have to prove shelf life. There wasn't room in stability cabinets to do the whole portfolio all at once, but we are going to vertically integrate our bag manufacturing to our high clone bulk liquids process and offer their products in this film as well.
I got that straight, right? So yeah, high clone media, buffers, and process solutions. Bags for those products.
So I thought I messed it up. So I think maybe we can talk about, when I think GE and I think sealed, so what's the working relationship? I mean, what
Yeah,
what's the relationship?
it's excellent. It's
Right.
excellent. I mean, we've been running this project for something like 5 years. So it's been an ongoing process. From the start, we both wanted to develop this film very much. So it was always been a very open process. A lot of collaboration. As an example, I was up at the new GHQ headquarters last week, 2 weeks ago now, with our VP of Core R&D. We were in the room together and we were talking, and we had the first break, and he was there to talk about other things, some of our other innovation spheres. And he said, if I didn't know who was in the room was from Sealed Air, I wouldn't be able to tell, because the collaboration and the interaction is so close. So, we've developed a strong relationship over the last 5 years, and we intend to progress with that.
So what triggered the get together there? Usually there's, is that an appropriate question? I mean,
as I said earlier, GE has been listening to the industry and to the working group, the industry working groups, BPOG, SUTAP, and others, regarding supply chain security for single-use technology, regarding potential leachables and extractables that could be deleterious to their processes, to standardizations and controls, to variability, lot to lot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in response to that, this strategy is partially a response to the customer's needs. And GE's made a very substantial investment to achieve what you're hearing today. And then for the customer, obviously, the additional benefit is simplification of the validation burden. So instead of having to validate numerous, films for their processes, they can validate one film and use it across all of their processes. So that's another benefit for the customer. And you already heard the benefits for GE. It simplifies our supply chain. That improves the assurance of quality, the assurance of control, and provides an additional protection for the customers.
From the Sealed Air side, we've been making films for IV bags, for parenteral nutrition and things like that, large volume parenterals, for over 25 years. So we're familiar with the space. We have the right kind of facilities, clean room manufacturing, and also that whole existing level of traceability. Now, the transparency that's being looked for in this market is another step forwards. So we had to take a long, hard look at that as well, because in general, plastics manufacturers are not necessarily that keen on revealing their recipes. But we took a view on this, so we've looked at it. We trust GE's judgment and what's required for the market, and we want to be able to do that. So we've made some changes internally as well. But it came from the fact that we had that core competency in producing these multi-layer films for the pharmaceutical industry already. And we wanted a strong partner to develop a film with. There are already existing films out there. We needed a partner to make a strong entry into the market.
okay. So let's talk about the rollout. When I come to these things myself, I say, yeah, that's a really great idea. And when I find that I can't find that or get it, or to avoid the frustration, what I want to do is, can we be pretty clear about, okay, you go and you push the Fortem button. All right, but what's the rollout what's the rollout? Because you would say it was going to be sequential, or can we get into that a little bit detail?
Sure. So about May timeframe of this year is when we'll have out our comprehensive validation guide. This is going to contain all the compendial information about the film. It's going to have a lot of information about the raw material components, explain fundamentally the choices for resin selection and what performance they drive, cell culture compatibility testing, demonstration of gamma compatibility, all the physical stuff pre, post gamma, pre-aging of the film. This is sort of the Bible of, this is why we feel we've got a film that's going to work in all of our product lines, and it'll include some application testing. And then from there, we're going to be manufacturing product with the Fortem film under our own roof in Westboro. So for that, we will be rolling out first the Wave product line. I expect that to come in the autumn of this year. The product design for that is not changing, but we'll offer the same product in this film as an option to those that are already on the market. The second launch in the iteration will be the storage bags, where we are redesigning our 2D storage bags that we offer today. We will maintain the supply of those bags, but we are bringing in semi-automated equipment so that we can scale up and also reduce variability in the manufacturing that we do on the bag chamber itself. And then lastly, in the case of Accelerex, we're bringing equipment in-house to be able to manufacture our Accelerex product under our own rooftop, which today is done at a contract manufacturing partner. And we will continue to offer the legacy product from the contract manufacturing partner as well. So we talked a little bit earlier about the security of supply aspects, and that was focused a lot more on the film itself. But we're also going to have some redundancy on some of our very key products in terms of where we manufacture and having multiple points of manufacture as well. So we move the needle in that regard also. So it will be iterative in the launch. Wave, storage bags, followed by Accelerex, and we're hoping to get all the products out of the gate by Q1 of next year.
So it's Wave, storage, Accelerex, maintaining legacy products so that you maintain your customers. And new customers, clearly this is the route. Older customers you're gonna time out and continue to support that. That's
right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think opportunistically, folks will find areas where current products, could be improved on in some areas, and opportunistically might pull this film in. But for sure, the big value is felt by those who are looking at an end-to-end processing solution by GE and don't have to take the Baskin-Robbins approach.
Okay. And what if they want to take the bull by the horns and transition? What's that scenario look like? Let's get with it. End of legacy onto the new.
Yep.
What's that scenario going to look like?
So I think
that's
probably why we're putting so much focus on that data package. The more characterization that we can put out there, the more our customers can compare CTQs, the easier we can make that transition. Depending on the customer process and where they are in their clinical pathways, will also have some impact on their degrees of freedom to make a transition. But we're certainly willing to work with our customers and help take on what we can as a supplier to make that transition as easy as possible.
What about the regulatory demand? Go ahead, Parrish.
No, I would just want to add to Ross's comment that we already work with many customers who are transitioning from other suppliers or CMOs to GE's supply technology, CTO's technology.
Right.
So we're very practiced at the business, the science of demonstrating product comparability, product quality comparability from one bag film to our bag film. We've been doing that for years. So the process science is well established, and the analytics are well established, and the biocompatibility is well established. So those methods are well in hand.
So but that background would help your clients to develop like a comparability protocol, or I'm just thinking, a lot of the times the great ideas are always stalled out because of red tape, regulations, delay, stability. But it sounds to me like you got the essence of a comparability protocols or whatever you need in that case. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think each situation's unique, and we'll have the groundwork to compare what's important if someone knows their CTQs, because I believe, at the start we've done a better job at, rather than guessing at what the CTQs are for bioprocessing. That's what this is about, right? It's taking what we've learned over the last 10 years and taking that knowledge and putting it to work. So I wouldn't sit here and say we have a pre-made comparability protocol, but if the customer knows what's important to them and what drives variability and what makes their process work, it's certainly a conversation that we can have and add a lot of value to and help guide what a comparability protocol would look like.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
So, no, I was going to say the other thing is that, going back to when we started this project, there was still a lot of disagreement in the industry between BPSA and BPOG about what kind of testing and should be available on these materials. That's kind of, they've worked together, the two groups have worked together. So we now have a route to market, if you will. And to my knowledge, this is the first film that will have that full testing in place. So again, that facilitates acquisition by people.
Well, it sounds to me like you guys got it queued up pretty good. Just got to hit it straight, right? Anyway, enough golf metaphor. Anyway, what are the significant investments you guys making in the single-use area? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can start. So from a technical perspective, for example, we've recently invested over $5 million in setting up an extractables laboratory. So in-house now, we can do all of the testing on our own products, and we'll soon be rolling out the opportunity for customers to work with us, and we provide the service to them to be able to do extractables testing as well. So that's a significant value add to our customers, because we understand our products and materials the best, and by working with us directly on that, it's an easier flow of information.
That complementary supply chain investment that I mentioned is bringing our manufacturing clean room space to about 3x of its current size to make room for new equipment, semi-automated, two-dimensional bag manufacturing, as well as semi-automated three-dimensional bag manufacturing. Up until this point, our manufacturing technique has been rather manual. So again, we see this as another opportunity to reduce variability and also to be able to start to capture more real-time data and put some analytics into that process as well. So there's a step function change in how we manufacture.
In addition, we've added cell line testing for every lot. So cell line, with sensitive cell lines that have shown sensitivity to extractants or leachables in the past. And this way we can make sure that the quality assurance is there, the quality of the product is there on a lot-to-lot basis.
Well, thank you very much. It was an excellent discussion.
Thank you.